Ron, I'm going to turn it over to you to get us started.
Thank you, Clark. All right, welcome everyone. Thanks for showing up today. It's a small room, but be a fun workshop regardless. So we're going to start with this introduction, then go into the pre-audit meeting, kind of briefing you before we go out into the field. But not everyone has to go out today. If you were worried about it being hot or don't have the right shoes, half of us are going to go into the field and do our road safety audit. Half of us are going to stay inside and kind of go through the crash analysis tools and figure out how we choose road safety audit locations. And finally, we're going to reconvene the process. We pitch a safety recommendation after we come up with a potential solution. In this, the stakeholders actually build those recommendations. And finally, it considers both qualitative and quantitative analysis. If you know much about our safety program, we are a data-driven program, but the RSA, you get to be a little bit qualitative. So take that with a grain of salt. We don't just go willy-nilly putting roundabouts everywhere. They have to have a data-driven practice behind those, but some of those smaller improvements, you can be very qualitative about in an RSA. So it's much more than just GDOT involved. We have all sorts of stakeholders. Of course, there's a safety program, there's the district, and there's the signals group every time there's a signal on there. We have local governments like the city government, county government, regional commissions, law enforcement often comes out, sometimes the fire department, transit agencies, and some other types of local organizations on occasion, like school transportation coordinators, neighborhood planning units, and community improvement districts. FHWA, Greg Morse, our guy, usually comes out with us. Safe Routes to School program comes if there's a school within the facility, and some nonprofit organizations or advocacy groups, like Georgia Bikes is on contract to come to all of our road safety audits, give that a vulnerable roadway user perspective. So when we're doing a road safety audit, it must have some sort of emphasis to those vulnerable roadway users or pedestrians and bicyclists. That's kind of a key part of a road safety audit, and that's primarily a concern now because those fatalities keep increasing at a much higher rate than the rest of our fatalities. Nowadays, they make up about 20% of our total fatalities. When we're doing the road safety audit, there are different ways we can deliver those projects, though. It's not just one delivery mechanism. We can think about improvements that can fit into routine maintenance that the district would do. We can think about improvements with signal maintenance that the safety program ourselves can do. Those have to be a little bit, I guess, bigger maintenance projects because we need to send those out to a contractor. And of course, there's quick response projects. The district, if you attended the district meeting earlier in this conference, you know, they are constrained on budget, though. There's under 2 million total and under 200,000 for a single project. Then there's menu of service design, which means no right-of-way, very minimal environmental impacts. So don't touch a park in menu of service design. And then, of course, the traditional plan development process. And then the equipment purchase program. So as I said, the local governments are involved with these. Our equipment purchase program, that's we buy it, they implement it. Sometimes our processes are slow, so we have a partnership with locals where they can request equipment, such as like a rapid flashing beacon, and install it using their methods. And finally, other planned projects. So sometimes when we do a road safety audit, there's a resurfacing coming through, or there's another planning project, a traffic ops project, et cetera. We can try and incorporate our safety findings into that project. So with that, I'll hand it over to Clark to do the kickoff meeting.
Thanks, Ron. Yeah, so we're gonna, like we said, we're gonna kind of do a mini RSA today. The full process, well, not the full process, like I said, but kind of the meat of it. So I'm gonna run through kind of quickly an abbreviated pre-audit meeting for our study area. So, go. The study area is The block out here, so Arnold Road to Beachview Drive, Ocean Boulevard, and Neptune Road. So we are in Glenn County. This is GDOT District 5, so we would typically have, all those folks here. We would like to reach out to the county, the city, and then they would all be in the room, kind of giving you some characteristics of that. And then what's nearby, right? There's the beachfront, there's restaurants, things like that. So let's keep all that in mind while we're going through this. The corridor, or block, if you will, is about a quarter-mile total roadway. There's one all-way stop control intersection, that's Ocean at Arnold, and then 3 two-way stop control intersections. The speed limits are 25 on all those roads. So, like you'll hear in a bit from Travis when we split up here, we use Numetric to find these locations. So this location was not data-driven in why we picked it. There were not a lot of crashes, so that's a good thing here. But it's proximity to the hotel, so we can go out there and walk it. That's how we chose it, obviously. So, but in general, which Travis will talk about later, how we identify these corridors for a true RSA. And another plug, I know we've talked about it a couple of times at this conference, but feel free to email that email right there and request an account if you do not have one. It's open to the public. It's got a lot of great tools in it. So like I was saying before, some things to think about, right? Here's our block here. We're at the King and Prince there. You got a lot of rentals. You got a brewery. You got the beach access, restaurants, shopping, condos everywhere. People that aren't really familiar with, their surroundings because they're on vacation. They're also got their families, their small children walking these things. So things to keep in mind when we're out there walking around. We like to talk about how much traffic there is on so these are the ADTs. Ocean's about 3,500, Arnold's 1,200, Beachview around 1,000, and the Neptune is very low volume. And these crashes are actually from not this corridor, but just wanted to show you all how we kind of look at trends, and normally when we were doing this, we would talk about that and talk about the trends we're seeing. So here, from our total crashes, we saw they were reducing for a bit, and then we hit the 2020 COVID year, which was weird, and then kind of saw it shoot back up, and maybe we are seeing it fall back off again, which is good, but things we just would note in a normal RSA pre-meeting. We also can kind of slice this data a bunch of different ways to look at different things. So, right, we can look at time of day crashes. We can look at the manner of collision. So at this other one that we had a lot of side swipe happening, a lot of rear ends. So we can look at trends in the data this way. Days of the week, what's happening, lighting conditions, months, what's going on in April, things like that. So surface conditions. So just wanted to mention that we use Numetric and pull all that data and aggregate it and share that with the stakeholders. So these are the actual crash diagrams that we would show in a normal RSA. So we have, at Beachview and Arnold, there were 2 crashes in the last, I think we did 8 years of data here. And it was, then we have Arnold at Ocean, which is obviously the one with the flashing light and stop sign up there. We've had some rear ends, some angles like that. Ocean at Neptune had one. When we get out there, you'll see that there's not a lot of kind of delineation on what's going on. There's a parking lot, some on-street parking. It looks like there was a car that was in that like angled parking or on-street parking area and was maybe turning left into there as well. And so that's an opportunity for some improvement there, just to kind of clean that up. And you'll see that when you're out there. And then Neptune at Beachview actually had a car backing into a pedestrian there in the parking lot. So that's, it was like right there adjacent to the intersection, so we included that. So when we get out there, I want y'all to keep in mind what safe features are present. We're going to have group leaders. Kelly in the back is going to lead a group, and then we'll switch up, and somebody else will take another group. But yeah, want y'all to be thinking about that. We'll go to the next slide. So in general, we use this app, Survey 123, and you can, right now, that QR code is live if you want to. Download it. You can make comments while you're out there walking. Obviously, we would then pull all that and show that in the post meeting. Today, we're not going to do that. We've already kind of done the recommendations just in effort of time, obviously. But in general, you would make all your comments, and then we would pull those together and present those in the post audit meeting, which Jonathan is going to do when everybody gets back. But things to be thinking about, what is out there, the entire corridor, intersection by intersection, segment by segment. What are the deficiencies? Are they just at this intersection? Is it a whole corridor wide problem? And then what are feasible solutions we can recommend? Obviously, Ron talked about all the different delivery mechanisms we have. So be thinking about those, like what could GDOT maintenance do? What would need to be a larger project? And then, while all still considering it being a feasible project. Where we're going to stop there, that was the end of the kind of pre-audit. So I think maybe like right here at Randy, to draw a line down the room, and everybody over here can go out with Kelly. And then, so we're going to do like, it's going to hopefully be back in about 30 minutes, maybe 20 minutes. Kelly, if you can try to do that. And then so y'all walk the corridor, she'll kind of point out some things, I'm sure, and y'all will all have some time to point out some things. Walk the block, come back in, and then Travis and Norm are going to do their presentation twice. So y'all are about to hear their stuff, then y'all are going to go out, and y'all are going to come back and hear what they have to say. All right? So we'll give y'all two minutes to filter out.
All right. Good morning, everybody. As mentioned previously, I'm Travis Brewer, engineer with Atkins. I work on safety contract for districts 2 and 5. Just show of hands, how many have used Numetric or Ash-to-Wear safety previously? A good portion. We do have a few people. So this will be a bit of a refresher, and then the people that haven't used it, kind of show you the ins and outs of it. So basically, we use Numetric to find our data-driven RSA locations. We have to do 2 per district per year, So right now, we are currently doing one in the fall and one in the spring. So we've already done our spring RSAs for this year, so we are waiting to do our fall RSAs. But we're kind of switching it up, spreading them out this year. But to do a location, let me just kind of show you the ins and outs. So this is the basic front screen that'll show you the crash query. So it houses all the crashes. So as you can see, there's over 3 crashes currently in the database right now. There are a few other different sections of numeric. So we have our network screening segments and network screening intersections. We can use those to filter out some of our higher crash segments and intersections. But for the purpose of RSAs, we like to use this sliding windows analysis function. So basically, this will kind of filter out some of the top crash segments. And right now, I think it defaults to 0.3 mile lengths. So it shows the top crash segments in the state by 0.3 miles. For RSAs, we typically like to focus on the roughly mile length in corridor, just so that we're not walking forever out there. But we are getting a good chunk of data in our corridors. So we'll kind of pretend we're going to figure out some of the RSA locations. So somebody from the audience throw me a district that we want to look at first. District 5, all right, perfect. So right here we would go into the filter. So the filters, there's all the filters that are in the crash reports. There's a few other data sets that are in there, like transit agencies. The new ones are like the social vulnerability index for equity searching that have been added for the census tract data. And then we do have a lot of geo filters. So for this one particularly, we would just go district. Type in, all right. And so we have district by area, and then the geo district boundary. So I'll just click here, and then we have the pre-populated selection, so district 5. So this is going to highlight district 5 here, and then give us the top crash segments by mile length for district 5. So going over here on the right side, we have our crash table. So first, it automatically defaults to crash frequency, which is the number of crashes that are occurring in the top mile segments. We typically like to use this one over on the far right, which is EPDO. If you're unfamiliar with EPDO, it kind of normalizes the crashes by crash severity. So the more severe locations with the best benefit will be at the top of the list, the higher the EPDO. So we would just click on the top, the filter over here. But we also have columns for fatal crashes, if you want to pinpoint on your fatal crash locations in the district, and then also crash rate, which will normalize the data by volumes and crashes. So we'll click on the EPDO right here. And so this will give us a nice breakdown of the top crash locations in District 5. So if we click on this first location, looks like we are looking in Statesboro here, just south of Georgia Southern College. This is a corridor that includes the intersection with the bypass here, so Route 67 and the bypass, and goes all the way down, it looks like right here, just past Langston Chapel Road. So when we're looking at the RSA locations, we want to also look at locations that we are brand new that haven't been looked at before. So from this point, we would take this location and then go into either GOASIS right here. So GOASIS holds all of our safety and operational projects that we've been working on currently. So we'd go here, probably the easiest thing would go to the map and kind of see if we have any projects at that location currently. So zoom in here to Statesboro. if you look right here, we have a green line and then also a closed circle, but green line represents a safety project. So I know for a fact that this is our district. We actually did an RSA a couple of years ago at this location because this intersection in particular is one of the top 2 in District 5 for crashes. So we are already currently looking at safety improvements along this corridor. So we'd probably go to the next one on the list. And so look at this one right here, Ogeechee Road. And so this looks like it's State Route 25, US 17. It crosses over State Route 4 and kind of the lower Savannah area in Chatham County. We would go back to Oasis and kind of look and around the area to see if we have a project. But I know for a fact that for District 5, we do have like a lot of projects in the top 10 list. So we are getting down on the list currently. But that's a good thing that we're looking at all the top crash locations and having safety improvements already proposed. I'll show you some of the other filters. We do like to focus in on like have at least one location that is like pedestrian driven. So there is another filter that you can look in here for, just type in PED, pops up. So you can look at pedestrian related crashes and then true. And it'll show you some of the top mile corridors that have PED crashes. So like looking right here, this lower part of Hinesville is popping up. So looks like there's been 3 PED crashes, 2 of them which were fatal. Then also it looks like right here we have like a pretty good frequency of PED crashes on this corridor. So this one could actually be a decent corridor to look at for PED crashes. And then one of the newer filters that we're looking at for equity is the social vulnerability index. So if you look in, there's 4 categories. I think that you said in one of the safety sessions previously, we have economic status, household, minority, and then transportation. Either one of them is good, but if you're unfamiliar with SVI, it's an index that ranks kind of the more vulnerable populations. The closer to 1, the more vulnerable. So one of the filters we like to use is transportation, and then pop up here. And I think we'd like to filter by like greater than 0.7. Yeah, and so that'll pop up some of the locations. So that for that quarter we were just looking at pops to number 1 on the list. So looks like it's a pretty vulnerable population. So this could actually be like a good road safety audit for us to do if we were focusing on PED crashes. But that's what we typically do. We go down the list here. This list is also exportable, so you can download it. If you just want to look at it and play around with it in Excel, kind of check off, because I don't think you can check off in Numeric, but you can download it here. Then it'll give you a nice export. You can go over here, start crossing off by the list as you go down. And then what we also like to do is, so we'll get a nice list of about 10 or so locations. And then in our monthly district meetings, we'll bring them up to the districts and then ask them if, we also want to coordinate and make sure that they don't know any projects that are going on, because they do have a lot of quick response projects that are going on and that could be on the corridor. So we'll bring it up, and then it's a nice collaborative effort to find a location to do a road safety audit. All right, any questions? All right.
So he had a
Yeah, that is correct. So what we like to do is we definitely like to validate our more severe crashes at least, to just verify that they're actually, because we do look at by EPDO, so if there's a ped fatal that's up at the top of the list, we do definitely want to verify that it actually occurred, because there is some erroneous data that does happen where it was listed as a fatal and then it turns out it was just actually a bump, like there wasn't actually a fatal crash in the crash report, so that would actually bump it down the list. So we do go in when we're looking at these locations and verify the crash data to ensure that it is what the fatal is valid, so to speak, because we have had instances where there was like 2 fatal crashes and then one wasn't, so a particular corridor would rank higher than the other based on that. So we do go in before meeting with the districts and we do validate all of our data that's in here at the list. So. Yeah, we do have, well, GDOT does, well, if you look in Gears, you have redacted and unredacted. So everybody that has a Gears account easily gets the redacted data. So if the redacted data does not have a good narrative, we do have access to email a guy named Dave Adams. He leads the Gears contract with GDOT. So it's easy enough to reach out to him and get the unredacted version or verify with him like the type of crash that was occurring is valid or something like that. So. Yeah. Yeah.
So how do you decide which of the, kind of different, who makes that a collaborative decision?
Yeah, definitely we've talked through several meetings and had like the best filters to use. So these are just ones that we've been using. Like I said, there's a whole list of filters in here that are ability like you can use. It just depends on if we're wanting to focus in on a particular area or not. We usually like to use the broad and just go down the list. But like I said, the social vulnerability index is a brand new in there, so allows us to focus in on the equity piece that we're trying to improve upon. So that's a good filter that we've just recently started using this year. But I think if we wanted to focus in on like pinpoint on a very specific, like Numetric gives you that ability.
How do you decide what frequency Numetric versus going original? Obviously, we're only up to maybe that would be 20.
I mean, so before we had Numetric, it was kind of a collaborative effort with the district to so it was somewhat data driven, but there was locations that we were doing RSAs that weren't the highest in the district. So it was kind of just like a guess trial, like this location looks like it's bad, so we'll go and pull the crashes and like, yeah, there's a lot of crashes, but there's not as many as this location that we could have been doing the RSA. So Numetric allows us to get there to the top locations, And what we're doing now is we're supporting the pneumetric data with the gears data and just adding on the crashes for the 2022 and up to 2023 kind of thing. So we're not entirely just discrediting those crashes that happened recently. We just add on with our crash data that we pull, supplement the data. All right. Mm-hmm. We typically try to invite all of our local law enforcement and then like anybody that would work a crash, so like fire chiefs. I don't know, do we invite EMS? Yeah, yeah. If we can get them on the, like a lot of them are doing their job daily, so they're not going to come out. But a few instances that we have, they are very beneficial because people that actually work the corridor, they can tell the whole story of what's going on. Like we're never like, we're just restricted to the crash reports, so we can get an idea of what's going on. But sometimes it's an entirely different story. Like they can tell you like the time of day, like yeah, people are making very risky maneuvers out of the shopping center during peak holiday season or whatever. Like we can like intuitively interpret that's going to happen, but some things we don't know. Or there could be like a Tuesday night trivia night that we don't know about, but that has a lot of traffic and it generates a lot of crash problems type thing. So they can like let us know on those little specific details. Yeah. All right. All right, we're gonna end the video for the online people. But Norm's gonna give a overview of the guidelines and the entire process after we make the selection of ours.
Okay, all right, I didn't. I guess I was trying to jot down little things as everybody's been talking. Yeah, I wanted to add, I guess, I don't know, I was gonna hit, I wish I'd taken better notes for myself here, but somebody was asking about the difference between, gears and pneumetric. The pneumetric folks are, we have a committee that all the safety teams are involved with pneumetric every month. Talk about updates. And one of the things they're working on, is for those of you familiar with pneumetric, it's through 2021 right now. They're working on an API that'll pull data more, say real time, but on a regular basis out of gears. So that'll help us. I think they're very close. I know they're close to having 2022 in there. They're telling us. Dave, you mentioned Dave Adams at GDOT. Dave's very very detail oriented. He likes everything to be just right before to let it go over into pneumetric. So, and then another thing about the crash data, I like to say when I was managing the repository at GDOT, I always would tell people that crash reporting is a very imprecise science. The officers, it was always challenging. The officers had this mentality, I think, and they probably still do, that the only reason we collect they fill out these crash reports is for the insurance companies. That's what I would always hear when we would outreach to them, and it was hard to convey to them that we're up here. They give us that information, and we try to make safety data-driven safety decisions and use these reports for the improvements. But it's still hard for them to get past that. I guess the only thing I wanted to add, based on what quickly, one of the things Travis was saying, like, you know, he mentioned with the screening, we look at the EPDO numbers to help rank. I think it's, you know, he kind of touched on it's getting more challenging. You know, we've kind of hit all the low-hanging fruit. You know, we've been through so many iterations of these road safety audits. Now it's getting more challenging to find good locations with actionable items that we. So I think in the future, one of the things that we get asked about, you know, the EPDO calculation is pretty straightforward and simple, but GDOT's working diligently with Numetric to build in some predictive, you know, the safety performance functions. They've got some of those built into Numetric now. So I expect in the next couple years here, very soon we'll start screening, you know, from the predictive values. At least I agree with that. I think we'll start seeing that, and then we'll maybe see some different sections. But you know, and another just quickly about that, it's challenging sometimes because, like Travis was pulling up that 1 mile section, you might have a 1 mile section and you look at it and yeah, it's got a lot of crashes, but they're run off the roadway crashes, let's say, and you can do, you know, you can put in edgeline rumble strips or rumble stripes or something, and you know, that doesn't really make for a good road safety audit, you know. But we could just go do that safety improvement there, but we don't necessarily need to go out there and do a full-blown road safety audit at that location. So that's kind of like a place that would make a, you know, that has a safety concern, but we can kind of scratch it off the list as far as the road safety audits concerned. I'm going to pull up here. I'm just going to kind of, we have, you know, as everybody's been up here talking about the road safety audit process, we have GDOT, we've worked with GDOT to develop a set of guidelines to make these, to make this process very, you know, uniform across all the districts in the state and amongst all the consultant teams. And it's, you know, and I think it's worked pretty well. Actually, the reports, if you looked at the RSAs, or if you sit in an RSA in District 1, or my team does GDOT District 3 and 6, but if you sit in District 4 or District 7, you know, there's definitely some consistency to the whole process, which is good, and what GDOT would like to see. Since Ron Konevich with GDOT just took over the managing the road safety audit process, I expect we'll probably make some updates to this. But Ron kind of talked about this. You know, this comes right out of the guidance, and I wanted to just reiterate it. And I'm going to read it just because there's some thought that kind of went into this. You know, the ultimate result of a successful RSA should be a blueprint for concise, actionable items. And I think that actionable word is key. It doesn't, you know, there's not a lot of benefit if we go out there and do a road safety audit, but there's nothing, you know, we can't actually, you know, get our goal. GDOT's goal is to get safety projects. You know, we want our safety action. So for concise, actionable items, the RSA should result in a safety action / implementation plan with short, intermediate, and long-term solutions. I think Ron touched on that in the beginning when he was up here. Each action plan should include safety countermeasures with estimated benefits measured in terms of lives saved and serious injuries prevented. So benefit cost analysis, I don't think I've heard anybody mention that yet this morning, but that's key to the whole. It's important to GDOT, and it's key to the whole road safety audit process. You'll see a whole bunch of BC calculations come out of these road safety audit reports that we conduct on behalf of GDOT. And then just even though we have these guidelines here, GDOT's following central guidelines from Federal Highway Administration for its RSA process and reporting. So if you've ever looked at the Federal Highway website for, you know, with their guidance for RSAs, it's kind of at a high level. But this document that we have, and Kelly or Ron or GDOT can share it with you. I'm not sure it's available publicly, but it's very detailed into, you know, how to actually conduct a road safety audit if you're going to do it. And this slide here is just kind of, again, this is kind of covers some of the things that Ron, that little flow chart that he had at the beginning of his presentation, the project identification that Travis shared with you guys just a minute ago, and you know, putting the team together and going through and then ultimately delivering the final road safety audit report. So one of the things that we get asked a lot, or a question, I mean, that comes up as far as road safety audit's concerned, and the documentation gets into that, is, you know, what a typical RSA looks like. You know, we can do them for a section. Travis showed you some sections, those 1 mile sections, but we've also done road safety audits just for an intersection. I mean, we could do, there's a lot of different, you know, and we can do some, you know, he showed you the 1 mile, but there's even, we typically try to keep them around a mile. Sometimes they wind up a little bit longer. I'm really bad about this. Like, as far as picking logical termini, I'll be like, oh, I want to include that intersection down there, and then everybody gets mad because walking a little further. But that 1 mile is kind of, it's not set in stone. We can also do, you know, like I have here in the guidance, we could do for a more rural RSA, we could actually do road safety audit up to like 5 miles. It's just obviously we're not gonna get out there like they're doing today and walk 5 miles. You know, it might be, we might ride it and stop at some places, and things like that. But we've had some, you know, sections of interstate that you can even do longer. But again, it's just, you know, you just have to handle it a little bit differently. And again, the guidance points out that the locations are identified in New Metric and Gears. And then a couple things I'm just gonna, you know, the data, we use crash data, traffic counts, pedestrian counts, signal permits, aerial photography, collision diagrams. We do a search of historical projects. And Travis hit on the SBI, another one that's kind of popped up recently. GDOT kind of dictates where things go, but older drivers are also becoming now an emphasis. Federal Highway will kind of put bugs in GDOT's ear for things that where they'd like to see emphasis. This slide just shows kind of all the different places, all the teams when we're conducting RSA, where we're out there looking for, you know, a couple of things, archaeological, so historical resources. We have to look at that too. That's important. We might have some intersection or some location we want to do something, but you know, if there's an old cemetery there, you know, or an old church, you know, of course that complicates things for us greatly. The census data, the SBI feeds into that. Signal permits, you know, traffic signal improvements are always coming up in these road safety audits. So we always go and pull signal permits, see how recently the signal might have been upgraded and what's been done to it. We look at that. And then the guidance also, and I don't think anybody's done this perfectly yet, but we're getting closer. Travis alluded to the fact that GDOT is letting us now do the RSAs. We used to like try to cram them all in right before the end of the calendar year, and it was hard because we have all these districts and everybody's trying to meet with GDOT and the safety folks at GDOT and present their recommendations to them. So now they're letting us do some at the first half of the year, generally like when school's in session, so we have a good feel what what we call normal traffic conditions. And then we're going to do kind of another set in the fall. So hopefully this year we'll have all the reports completed within the calendar year. I guess when they come, you know, we talked about one of the deliverables, the ultimate deliverable of the RSA is we'd like to see a list of recommendations. Typically, everybody has a spreadsheet that we put together with all the recommendations that comes out of the RSA with comments, and then we'll prepare sketches and such for what we're going to do. I wanted to touch on this slide real quick. I don't know who it was. Maybe it was, I think it was Ron that talked about the tool. We started doing this a couple years ago, and I like it. It's worked pretty well. Esri has it's kind of a form tool called Survey 123, and all the teams built a form that you can use on your phone, your Android or Apple phone when you're out there, and you can just take pictures and make comments while you're out there doing the site visit. And these are just some screenshots. If you clicked on the QR code that was up there and you pull it up on your phone, it just basically, you go through and you get to a location and you just check boxes, you know, what deficiency you see. You can put a pin on your map, you know, wherever you're standing with your phone, and then you can actually take pictures and upload them to the cloud. And that's been real helpful. We used to just pass out sheets of paper and everybody would make comments. And some people would just carry the pieces of paper around and wouldn't fill them out or anything, but we seem to get a lot more, at least we do, I guess. You know, we get a lot more comments back, and then it's a lot easier when you get ready for your debriefing to pull them all up, and you can see where people made the comments and download their photos and stuff. But it's a simple tool, but it works. It's worked real well. And then this was just Ron had showed you guys these two. We kind of break everything up into these improvement categories, and we've got. Oh, are they? Yeah, okay. The only other thing I guess I wanted to add to was when you guys go out and walk, you know, one of the things that kind of got, that nobody really mentioned when, you know, as Ron was talking about team members, there's a lot of maintenance items get caught. I bet most of the recommendations that come out of these audits are routine maintenance, cutting vegetation, signs, some you know, adjusting signs, something like that. So maintenance is a big. If you have a road safety audit and you can get maintenance out there with you, I've always found them to be very useful, because they can kind of give you a sense of what they actually going to do. You know, because everybody says, oh, the maintenance. All right.
Cool. Thank you, Norm. I'm gonna flip back real quick to that QR code, and everybody can snag it.